Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for this bassoon recital. My name is Midori Sampson and I have the pleasure of teaching these wonderful bassoonists at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. For this event, I asked every student to, in addition to preparing music to perform, to also prepare a pretty extended introduction to their piece. So they will invite you to do activities, watch a discussion, and hear personal stories. Welcome to our recital.
Hello, I'd like to thank everyone here for joining me today. My name is Zachary Dunbar, and I'm currently a freshman here at UW Stevens Point. And today we'll be discussing and eventually playing the Sonata in E minor by Henry Eccles. Now, before we go too far into this presentation, I'd like everyone to close their eyes as I play several short excerpts from this piece. And I'd like to, as I play, it'll be three separate excerpts. I'd like to think of a scene to match each one and see if we can tell a story with each scene. And here will be excerpt number 1. Here's excerpt number 2. And finally, excerpt number 3. Now everyone can open their eyes and think about the excerpts you just heard. Now, when I think about this, and I think about the visual imagery in my head, I like to think of this as like almost an epic movie kind of scene. Take the first excerpt, which is from the first movement, think of it as like the beginning of a movie, or the beginning of a major scene in the movie. The second scene I like to think as more the action type. It's very exciting. Everything is very exciting in this movement. And the third excerpt, which is from the third movement, I like to think as almost a mournful type of excerpt. So this major battle has just ended, and now we're going over and there's grieving going on. Now, what caused these emotions? On the first movement, we have a slow and very smooth excerpt. It's fast enough that, unlike the third movement, which we'll get to in a little bit, it's faster than the third movement, which adds not as quite as a mournful effect for me. Now, as we go to the second excerpt from the second movement, we'll see that this one is much faster and the notes are much more detached, and it's sometimes louder than the both other movements. So both these affects the shortness of the notes, in the entire speed of the entire piece. For me, seems much more excitement. It causes much more. It seems more thrilling to me. Now, as we go to the third from the third movement, we'll notice that these are it's long and slow and very smooth. It's very long and very slow. This adds more of a mournful kind of feeling for me, especially following the second movement. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for me, and I hope you enjoy my performance of Eccles Sonata in E minor.
So, I guess to start this interview off, Sam, I'd like to ask, why do you like Osborne's Rhapsody for Bassoon?
That's a good question. I don't think anyone has actually ever asked me that before. Um, I like Osborne's Rhapsody for the Bassoon because for me, it's such an emotional and dramatic journey for me to play. Um, Whenever I practice or perform the solo, my interpretation is always different. It's never the same. Depends on how I'm feeling on that day, you know? And this is the same, at least from what I could tell, for professional bassoonists. I've not found any recordings that sound the same. Each performer's interpretation is different.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely hear that. But what exactly makes Rhapsody for Bassoon so dramatic and emotional for you to play?
So I think for me, what makes Rhapsody so emotional and dramatic for me is the ebb and flow, like the push and pull with the tempo. There are many moments in this piece where there's just a slight amount of silence. And fun fact, it's actually not even written in the sheet music that says like, oh, pause for 5 seconds or whatever. That's all up to the performer. And I like how Osborne composed for the bassoon and how he utilized the entire bassoon's range. It's incredible.
Okay, awesome. Sam, thank you for sharing. Do you want to go more in depth about those three aspects of the solo?
Yeah, so for the ebb and flow or the push and pull that I mentioned, there are many markings in the sheet music that dictates how something should be kind of played. There are a lot of ritordandos, rallentandos, stringendos, rubato, um, and many other markings that kind of dictate how the performer should play. And I can actually show you. I'll send you the video. And for the moments of silence, I mentioned this before, but there are no markings that tell you that you should wait, or there's not measures of rest in between. For this one part in measure 19, it's in 4/4. Beats 1, 2, and 3 are playing a low D natural, and then there's an eighth rest followed by an eighth note. And at that moment, between that D and that F, I take my time. I take a breath and I just wait. There are many other moments in this piece, in the beginning as well, in the middle, and at the end. But my favorite one is at that measure 19, with just that low A and then just silence. I take a breath, and I'll send that one to you too. And lastly, the range. Not sure if you know this. You might actually know that. You're me. But the bassoon has a wide range. It can play like super low notes to super high notes where it's like, oh, that came out of that? I never expected that. And I think Osborne utilizes this expertly. The lowest note in this piece that I play is a low C. And the highest note I play is a B double flat or an A. And what's really cool is that the last page in measure 51, I just, you know what, it's kind of hard to explain. I'll just send it to you and you can watch.
That was really interesting, Sam. Thank you for telling me about your thoughts on Rhapsody for Bassoon. It's been nice talking to you today. If there is anything that you'd like to say to the listeners back home, say it now, and then we'll end this interview.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure to have me interview me. It's been a fun journey learning the solo, and I'm proud of the progress that I made since starting it. For the listeners back home, I hope you enjoy my performance of Osborne's Rhapsody for Bassoon.
Today I'll be talking about the Concerto by Christopher Theofanidis. It was written in 2002 for Martin Koosman for a bassoon and chamber orchestra. Wow, I love this piece. So I originally started playing bassoon when I was going into my sophomore year of high school, and before that I played tenor saxophone and piano, and I switched to bassoon just because my band director was desperate for one. We had a senior graduating and someone else was supposed to be moving that played the bassoon, so I was kind of the only one, and I was surrounded by all these people that loved classical music and showing people how much they love classical music. So I, by my friend Abby and my friend Lexi, they introduced me to so much music in so little time. I was introduced to Hummel and Mozart and Weber and all these incredible bassoon solos, and this was one of them, which I am incredibly thankful for. I was originally drawn to this piece because the first minute of it is only the bassoon, nothing accompanying it. It's 32 measures of only bassoon out of a 300 or something. So first movement, it's about 9 minutes long. It's incredible, and I would listen to it every day driving to. Oh, I was a clinician at some summer camp, so it would mark how far I would go in my journey to and from the camp. But the thing is, I would only listen to the first minute or so and just start it over and just keep listening to it. And I listened to it over and over and over because it proved that the bassoon is such a dynamic instrument. It has so much range and there's so much you can do with it. All 108 keys. So yeah, part of that range is, well, I'll show you. And I would always wait for that part, that insanely high D, and then after that there's like the highest F that some bassoonists just bite their reed just to be able to hit. And I would go to my bassoon and try to work out, first of all, just that interval. And I was like, the day that I discovered it, I was like, wow, are they just using the lowest and highest notes of the bassoon? And it turns out that they were, which I love. There's so much that you can do, and this is just with the bassoon and a silent orchestra behind him and in front of a packed concert hall. Which is so incredible and shows that there's so much that you can do with the bassoon. There's a part of the piece where he's double tonguing, and I would show you that, but I'm not the best at double tonguing. And there's that high F, and there's so much to this. And that also shows like how far I've come with the bassoon and where I had to pick it up in the span of a summer just to be in wind ensemble the next semester, which was so incredibly hard. But pieces like this made it worth it, where it's like, I made so much progress in so little time, and I'm incredibly thankful for it. But also, it makes pieces like this a little harder because I've been listening to it for so long that there comes a point where I need to make my own decisions as a performer that maybe go against what I've been listening to for my own personal reasons. For example, every performer does this part a little bit different. For context, there's quite a lot of like mixed meter and like shifting meters like all the time in this piece. And some people take a little faster or mess with rubato a little bit more or completely ignore counting altogether. So it's really interesting just to see how people perform it. Okay. So like ignoring meter and how much you can do with vibrato and how little you can do with vibrato. There's one part a little bit further on, like 187 measures into the piece, where I personally like to just cut out vibrato altogether because it's titled Ghostly Moving. And the strings are like all shifty behind the bassoon, where you don't need to do all that much to it, and it's almost cooler if it's a little bit stale. But that's just me. Every performer is different, which makes this piece so incredible. There's so much that you can do with it. Something that Martin Koosman and I do very differently is this part at Q, where he just rushes past these triplets, which personally I like to hear them. But his is like so dramatic, and he slows down at the peak range-wise of the phrase, and then goes back to that flurry of triplets. So he performs it a little bit more like. And just keeps those triplets going so fast. And this section is titled Pressing a Little. So personally, I like to keep those triplets in meter to some extent, and then speed it up as I go along. But he keeps those flurries really fast, and then has the longer notes have that increased tempo. So I do a little bit more like. And this piece is really important to make sure that you have a good reed, because without it, it's borderline impossible. So again, with that like insane high range, there's this one bit that I practice every time, and I love it so much, but today my reed might not cooperate. Okay. My reed did not cooperate. So that's like the highest E, and I have to get like really close to the end of the reed just to be able to do it. But there's so much that you can do with this piece, and it's incredible just to be able to perform it and make these decisions, and know that I've come so far just to be able to make these decisions. So yeah, I love this piece. I hope you do too.
Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you for a similar event someday in person.